What's up, y'all? What's good, black people? I'm gonna take a minute. Welcome some of y'all on in. Say what's up. I'm back on at my regular time, 3-ish CPT. What's good, y'all? I want to invite you in. While you're coming in, I want to thank you for joining me, and I want to remind you to like, subscribe, and share. What's up, Charles? How you doing? I want to remind you to join my Patreon community. I'm growing that community out. So if you want to connect with me, make sure you head over to Patreon at Grind with Jice. I want to throw that out there. I'm throwing out all my plugs early so I can get them out and make sure that we get into this because we say some dumb stuff, y'all. I want to make sure that you know about the Black Agenda. Yo, as you come on in, let me know where you're from, right? Like, I know I got some Denver folks. Denver, y'all been asking about this Black Agenda. Is that something y'all want? Y'all want the Black Agenda in Denver? But let me know where y'all are at. Like, I haven't asked that before, but I get today somebody hit me up from South Africa. I was like, that's what's up. Let me know where y'all at. Like, where are you from? Where you at? I would love if you would tell me. Newark in the house. I hear that. Jamaica, Florida. All right. So y'all know I'm over here in Denver. But y'all know I love to shout out where I'm from. I'm from Oakland. But yeah, tell me where you're from. I love to hear and know where people are coming in from because, you know, I had no clue and I didn't even think to ask. Are you still living in Tacoma, Charles? That's what's up. That's my guy from the Army. We go way back, way back. Hey, I just want to do a real quick shout out, y'all. So check this out. This sister came up to the Black Agenda in Detroit, and hopefully y'all can see this. So she came and brought all of us some of these. This is kind of dope, y'all. I really love it. And so Risk Game Proper. So I just want to shout her out because sis came and she was like, listen, I just want to come and love y'all. And she brought all of the speakers, one of these, and they were all different ones. And so I just wanted to shout her out because I appreciate that. We got Queen. Oh no, I thought that was Queens, but that's Greeting Queens. Thank you. Peace. New York. I don't know. So I don't know how much they cost because she gave it to me. She gifted it to me. I was like blown away. So I appreciate that. But go to Risk Game Proper. Look her up. Risk Game Proper. I probably should have just already had her website. I didn't. I'll drop it in the comments. But go to Risk Game Proper and put that out there and check her out. All right. So I just wanted to talk real quick, y'all. Oh, wait, let me remember the Black Agenda. So the Black Agenda, go to the blackagendaontour.com. Make sure that you text Black Agenda to 484848 to stay up to date. So let me just tell y'all, this is a fluid situation. We got a lot going on. And we're going to do what makes the most sense. We're going to do, what gets the message out where it needs to be. And so if you have done any type of planning, any type of grassroots organization, any type of even just event planning in general, right? Like you're going to find that you are going to run into some changes and things like that. So you have a vision, you stick as much to your vision as possible, you go with the changes or you go with the flow of things. I talk a lot about the fact that it's, you got to keep your eye focused on where you're going, but be flexible about how you get there. All right. So be a little bit flexible with us. But if you want to stay up to date with all the changes, get the information on there first. Make sure that you text Black Agenda to 484848. You can also go and sign up on the blackagendaontour.com and get information there as well. And you can go to BBI Professional if you want to stay in touch with what I have going on, events that are happening here in Denver. I'm starting to plug in that we have our Black Boss Summit coming up in September. So that's something that is coming up. So just be aware, this is our third annual Black Boss Summit. So I'm very excited about it. It is a full day of digging into tangible takeaways for your business. So we're not just over here talking about a lot of motivation. You get motivated because if you're like if you're trying to build your business and you're on it, you know, you are motivated by getting information that is going to help you take your business to the next level. So let me not make it seem like there's no motivation involved, but my Black Boss Summit is around tangible takeaways that you can apply to your business. It is a full day of talking with experts and getting in there with people who are on the ground, who are really doing it and doing it well. So make sure that you just stay on the lookout for that. So that summit is happening here. We have a VIP on Friday night, and then we have the summit is a full day. So we have breakfast, we have lunch, there are vendors and all of that. So it's a good full day to really get in and get some solid business information as you grow your business. Which reminds me that yesterday I dropped a podcast. So if you are in the startup phase of your business, if you are trying to start a business, if you are someone who is just getting started, that might be something that you want to go and check out. So that is the Boss Up with BBI podcast. You can check it out on, if you go to like BBI Professional, you can check it out. Actually, if you're subscribed to me here on YouTube, you will also get it. So you can go in and check that out as well. So that's for people who are in their startup. And that's actually a question I get frequently, which is why I did a podcast on it, so that I can put out that information for you, for people who constantly are asking about like tips on starting their business. So anyway, I want to throw that out there. So I just want to talk about this real quick, about being a leader and the idea that we don't need Black leadership. I'm not really sure where this idea has come from. It really bothers me when I hear it. And I remember just kind of a lot of the propaganda that has come around this idea that like we are our own leaders. I don't need outside leadership. But Black lives do matter. But this was something that bothered me around Black Lives Matter, was this constant idea that we didn't have to have leadership. And so it was almost like all these autonomous running organizations, and they were all under like the title of Black Lives Matter, and they were, you know, they were holding on to a brand of Black Lives Matter, but it was very difficult to like really pin down and trace what was the overall direction. And so these like local organizations got to kind of pick and choose what it was that they were focusing in on. And I think there were certain ideologies that were kind of coming to the forefront, but it wasn't very clear. And so there was this messaging around like a lack of Black leadership, right? And not needing Black leadership. And so that's not the only place that I heard it, but that was just one of the places that I remember very clearly. Like I was coming to a few of the meetings, I was listening to what was being said, and I'm like I think I get what you're saying, because everyone is a leader, but we still have to have leadership. So I think it's important for us to kind of recognize what's the difference between being a leader and leadership, and stop the messaging that we don't need leaders in our community, or in particular, stop the messaging that we don't need leadership. So talk with me here, because she said the idea came from the fact that every leader we have had either died or became so big they forgot the mission at hand. So hold on to that thought, because I want to get into that, right? I want to get into that because, again, we're talking about the fact that we do need leaders. We need leaders, but I think that we have to have a more solid understanding around what the purpose of leadership is, and what am I trying to say? What the purpose of leadership is, how it should be functioning, and how it affects us, right? And then recognizing that as an individual, we have the ability within ourselves to exert traits and values that leaders would tend to have, right? So you can be a leader. You should be a leader. There are going to be places and spaces in your life that you are a leader, or the leader, the top dog, whatever the case is, right? And that might be in your family, that might be in your home life, that might be in certain areas of your community. Maybe you're a part of a team. There's all types of places to exert leadership. And I think what gets kind of confused there, a little convoluted, is this idea that you have to have these like leadership qualities, or you have to. I'm getting my words jumbled up, y'all. What I'm trying to say, I think where we get this kind of convoluted is that we look at being a leader like it has to be the head of something. Like, if you are considered a leader, you must be leading an organization. You must be in command of something. You have to have people following you in order to be a leader. And I think that that part is incorrect. I think that you don't even necessarily have to have followers. I think that you have to be a person who holds to certain types of traits and certain values that are that can be examples that people could follow. Maybe you just haven't found your tribe. Maybe you're not in the top leadership position, but there are responsibilities and duties that you can step up into, right? And so what could happen is, as a leader, the leadership can count on you to know that if they give you a task, or if you take on a task, maybe you do it on your own, that you are trusted to be able to carry that out, right? So leaders don't necessarily require followers in terms of having leadership traits, in terms of living a lifestyle that is filled with values that we would like to see inside of leaders, right? However, the Black community is in desperate need of leadership, and I believe that we have to make a distinction between being a leader, being a person who lives a life of high character, versus being in a leadership position where you are in charge of some aspect of the people or the community or the movement, right? And by being in charge of doesn't mean like dictatorship, but instead means that you have a certain set of responsibilities and a certain set of expectations if you are going to be in a position where people are counting on you, looking towards you to bring in resources, bring in information, bring in knowledge, create strategy, execute those things. I mean, there's a lot that kind of goes into that. And so when we look at the fact that we've had a lot of leaders that have so we have leaders that have died. We have leaders that are old and out of touch, right? And they haven't stayed up with the times, and they haven't stayed up with what's going on. We have certainly had leaders that have just been flat out murdered. And then we have leaders that come in and they begin to take advantage, right? So I talked about misleadership, and I talked about how we begin to take accountability. And as I said, I don't have all the answers there. I believe, though, that as a community, that is a very consistent dialogue that we need to have until we have a way to hold leadership accountable. So again, like, you being a leader in your life is one thing. You being in a leadership position within the greater community or the greater context of the community is something different. And when you don't uphold to that, we need to have a way that we can remove those leaders out of that position. And so, again, I did speak on that, but I don't have all the answers. I don't know what that necessarily looks like. I welcome that dialogue because I think there is a way that as a community, if we agree to what leadership should look like, when someone is not holding up to that version of leadership, then it is our responsibility as a community to then remove that power and that status from them. Because leadership comes with a level of power, and it comes with a level of status. And we should be able to remove that from them. But we don't have a strong idea around what it means to be a leader in the community, what it means to have a leadership position, which is partially why we allow Black leaders to run amok, do what they're doing, and oftentimes be out for themselves, oftentimes put the good of themselves over the good of the community. And that's something that we really need to address, because to get into a leadership position inside of the community, oftentimes you are presenting to the community and to those outside of the community that your goal and your mission and your purpose is for the greater good of the people, right? So you're saying that I am here for the collective. I'm here for everyone. And what we see time and time again is that in reality, when those doors are closed, when the camera's not on, you're actually really just there for you. You're trying to advance your career. And that's where, in my opinion, I've seen a lot of the lateral movement happen inside of leadership. So when you start looking at the person who has been, they're the head of the NAACP, now they're the head of the Urban League, now they're the head of the chamber, now they're the head of, some other foundation that's supposed to be, for the community, right? When you start to see those people making these lateral moves and you start to see recycled faces over and over and over again, it's because we have not removed their power and their status to let people know this person does not have the collective in mind. And because oftentimes we're so enamored by trying to get close to that limelight, that status, not necessarily even that they have power, but that they oftentimes are bringing or have obtained a certain level of status, then we are not holding them accountable to the fact that they are not actually doing right by the collective, right? And this is how we keep being in this perpetual state of not actually being able to move anything forward, because our leadership is really out for themselves, not out for the collective. And I will be the first to say that sometimes it is hard to be out there for the collective. I will be the first to say that. Because sometimes the collective will get on your nerves. The collective sometimes don't know what's in its best interest. The collective oftentimes has a lot of infighting, right? So I'm like, let's just keep it real. We are a hurt people, and we have a long way to go and a long way to claw out of the mental conditioning and the damage that has been done to our community. So sometimes working on behalf of the collective is tough. However, if you can't stay true to the good of the collective, then you can't be in a position of leadership. And we have to be able to remove those people in order for us to begin to really see change. And I believe that's why we're in this perpetual state of thinking that we might be starting to get somewhere. We see some movement and then we have this backtrack, right? So, I think it's important just for us to know that there are traits and values that we can attribute to leadership, to being a leader in and of yourself. And there are traits and values that we should look for, right? Like a high standard of character, being a person of integrity, being a person, who is honest, right? Being a person who maybe is trustworthy, right? There's things that we can look at in terms of leaders and being a leader ourselves. Being accountable is an important one. We can look at being consistent, right? And actually following through. You have a lot of people who start some shit and don't ever finish it. So you can't be a leader, or that doesn't show leadership if you are constantly starting and you can't see something through to completion, despite how tough it might be. And I think that is something to even make a side note on, is the idea that oftentimes when we see people who are really excelling and doing well and they're completing things, we come back and we attribute that to, oh, they're just talented, or, they were just born with a gift, or we try to give them some other advantage that we feel we did not have in order to justify why they were able to see a certain level of success that maybe we weren't. And the reality is that oftentimes we just don't stick with it enough. And when I think about things or characteristics or traits like grit is having a passion and perseverance. It is going through all of those ups and downs. And I talked about that. We think that success is like A to B, and I think we've all seen that meme, right? Success looks like A, or, what people think success looks like is A to B. What success actually looks like is, right? Because success is, getting to that place of success or seeing something through to the end requires you to have grit. It requires you to have perseverance. And so that is an excuse oftentimes that you will give yourself for why you didn't accomplish something that you wanted to, or you didn't accomplish your goals, versus and giving that as an excuse to why somebody else did. They're just better than me. They were born with it. They had certain type of parents. They had certain type of privileges. And there is certainly, I'm not going to say some truth. There is a lot of truth to the systems that purposely keep Black folks down. But what happens through all of those systems is we still have to persevere and we still have to stay consistent. And there's something to momentum. I'll tell you this. So I am a part of an organization called Shop Talk Live, and I remember having conversations sometimes where it's like, oh, hey, are we going to hold shop talk today because the weather outside doesn't look so good? We might not get a good turnout. And I've always been a person that says we still have to hold it. If we say we're here every first and third Monday, right, or every first and third Wednesday, rather we used to be there every first and third Wednesday. If that's what we said, we have to be there. Period. It don't matter if one person shows up or 100 people show up, because as soon as we stop, we lose momentum, right? And so we have this place where we are not constantly pushing out and being in this space of recognizing how momentum helps us go through those ups and downs. And so we get discouraged because we didn't have the turnout we wanted, or we didn't have the results that we wanted to have. And I get it. It happens to the best of us. It really does. It happens to every leader. It happens to every successful person that you see. The difference between you and them is whether or not you keep going despite. And I think sometimes we have to recognize that we are able to act despite how we feel and despite what we think. What we do and what we think are not one and the same. Because I've thought about punching somebody in their fucking throat before, but I didn't do that. You get what I'm saying? We don't have to do everything we think. So we don't have to do everything we feel. And so we see that in times when we have to exercise restraint. Like, I really want to fight this person, but I'm not going to. I really want to cuss this person out, but I'm not going to, right? If you're a parent, you'd be like, oh my God, I want to strangle this kid, but I'm not going to, right? So we see that happen when we have to exercise restraint, but we often forget about it when it's time for us to push through. That even though you are tired and you don't feel like getting up, even though you are tired and you don't want to make that phone call, even though you don't feel like going on that next appointment, even though you don't feel like going to the gym. I mean, figure it out for whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish. Even if you don't feel like it, even if you have a different thought, you don't have to act on that. You can act despite whatever you're feeling, and you can act despite whatever you're thinking. So that's something we have to keep in mind, right? So now let's circle back to leadership, right? You can be a leader. You can determine and think about the types of traits, the types of values that you feel like should be in a leader, and you can work to cultivate those in yourself. That's how you become a leader. That's how you begin to lead in every aspect of your life, regardless of what your actual position is in the bigger context of anything, right? That's how you become a leader. I believe as a community, we have to think about what types of values and traits we want to see in our leadership and hold them to that. Because once they get into a position of status and a position of power, they have a different level of expectation. They have a different level of responsibility that is owed to the people who they are working on behalf of. That is what happens when you're in leadership. So this is not all inclusive, and I would love if you join in and like tell me some things that you think maybe should be included here. But here are 4 areas that I want to point out that we need to see inside of leadership and begin to recognize how to delineate between me being a leader of myself and me being in a leadership position of the community or in the community, and why we absolutely need to have leadership inside of the Black community. I don't hear that bullshit no more. We should be producing leaders so that when our leaders are murdered, because they're still going to be, when our leaders die, because they will, when our leaders get out of line and they need to be removed, because that's going to happen, we still need to be constantly producing people who have leadership traits and leadership values that can replace, right? So that the movement is never stopped because of something happening to a person in a position of leadership. However, we absolutely need to have leadership. So let me talk about that. What is the purpose of leadership? One of the purposes of leadership is to set the example. So I talked about this a little bit already, but let me dig in a little bit better, right? Leadership is there to set the example. And what I mean by that is you cannot ask of the community what you are not willing to do and be for yourself. So when somebody in the community is in a position of leadership and they are asking for you in the community to donate your time, donate your money, spread the word, put out the information or put out some information, volunteer, bring something here, take something there, open up your network, right? Any and all of those things. When that leader is not doing those same things, they cannot ask that of you, and they need to be checked on that. That's something that we need to look at. That is an internal situation. Like internally, we need to figure out how to check ourselves, right? So think about that. Like it takes some internal, it takes being internally in tune to check yourself as to whether or not you're actually living the example. So I promise you, I don't ask of you anything that I don't do myself, because I do consider myself to be in leadership. I started an organization that was designed to help us build and grow our economic base, right? And so I believe that in that position, I have to work on myself being financially and economically sound. I have to own a business. I can't tell you to own a business and I don't own a business. I can't tell you to invest and I'm not investing. I can't tell you to save and budget and I'm not saving and budgeting. I can't tell you to own real estate. I don't own real estate. I can't tell you to share information. I don't share information. I can't tell you to come and volunteer. I don't volunteer anywhere. Like we have to live what we speak. If we're asking the community of that, then we also have to live by that ourselves, right? As leaders, we have to set the example. And when we find leaders who are not setting the example, that's hypocritical. They need to be checked. They need to be given an opportunity to correct course. If they don't correct course, they need to be removed from a leadership position. But you as a leader also need to think internally, right? Do you ask something of your children that you don't do? I remember I had this conversation with my kid's father, and I said, you're asking your boys to read and you're pushing them to read, but when is the last time they saw you sit down with a book? Right? So we can recognize that something is good for someone else, but if it's good for them, it's good for us. And if we're going to preach a message to somebody about doing something, then we got to be doing those same things. And I'm not saying you have to be perfect, but you do have to be in the active process of living out the life that you are asking someone else to live out, right? So that's a part of leadership. And that's important inside of the greater context of what it is that we're doing in the community, is making sure that community leaders are living that and setting that example. The second thing is that leadership is responsible for setting the pulse of the community. And so that means that that they need to be responsible for what the look and feel of the community is. If the community is disengaged, it's because the leadership is disengaged. If the community is not active or involved, is because the leadership is not active and involved, right? And so leadership is responsible for setting that pulse of what is happening on the ground inside of the communities. That is a responsibility of leadership, right? And so you as a leader, you can help with that, but as a person in a status and position of leadership, that is part of your responsibilities and your expectation of leadership. And that pulse of the community is directly tied to the behavior and the culture that's being created. So if the pulse of the community is not one that we want to have inside of the community, we got to look back at the leadership and say, hey, you're not doing your job. And we can hold them accountable to that. You're not setting the example. You're not really creating the culture that we need. You're not creating the type of behavior that we need inside of the community. And see, leadership is a tall order, right? And so everybody wants to talk about being a leader, and you should be a leader, but recognize it is a tall order. There is stuff that leaders inside of the greater context of the community are responsible for. And as long as we keep allowing them to just be slack on that, we won't see the type of changes that we need, because there are things that they are responsible for and expectations that they need to be held to in order for them to be effective. Leaders are also responsible for setting direction. So again, and that's probably one of the most important things that I hear when I keep hearing that we don't need Black leaders, we can be our own leaders. I'm like, nah, see, because that means everybody is doing their own thing. Everybody is going out about their own direction. That is one of the biggest propaganda lies and pieces of bullshit that has ever been created for us, right? Is the idea that we don't need leadership because everybody can go out there and do their own thing. So you want to know what happens? That means all of our power gets dispersed and it's not aggregated and it's not leveraged to make any type of policy, legislation, or anything that we want to have happen actually happen, because we are all doing our own thing, right? We're all our own leaders. We don't need that type of help. We don't need somebody to tell us what to do. And so I'm going to just do me, right? And that's how people start trying to set their own individual agendas. They want to go and find their own little 20 or 30 people followings. They want to think that having a couple thousand followers online means that you're doing something. There's 44 million Black people in America. You're not doing nothing, not even with your 1 million followers. You're not doing nothing. You need to have a portion of those followers, a significant portion of people moving in the same direction, right? And so think about this. Like, I don't know if you I'm a mom. Finding Nemo. Okay, Finding Nemo, right? I think this one was in Finding Dory. Don't quote me. Just work with me here, right? All the fish are inside the net. And they all scared and they all swim in their own different direction, right? Ain't nobody going nowhere. The net is steadily pulling them all out of the water, right? They finna die, right? They all going. And I can't remember who said it, but somebody was just like, we all need to swim in one direction, right? So next thing you know, they're like, hey, everyone, this way, everyone, this way. So next thing you know, all the fish are swimming in one direction, right? And the fishermen are like, what the hell is going on? They're at the top of the boat. Like, now the boat is starting to tilt because all the power is going in one direction, so much so that all those little fish who couldn't do shit by themselves because they were all going in one direction was able to pull the net all the way down, and then bam, the net busted and everybody was set free. The reason why Black people don't get that unity is the key to our freedom and our liberation is because they keep trying to tell you that you don't need leadership and that you can do it. Somebody had to go in there and tell all them fish, hey, slow the fuck up. We all finna go this way. And let's all go this way. And now we all going to pull the net down. Now the net's bust. Now we all free. Right? And so they keep telling you that you don't need leadership, but leaders are responsible for setting the direction that we all need to push and go in at the same time so we can use our collective power in order to make it happen, right? And so while you out here thinking that you about to lead your own tribe of 30, you're not doing anything. Matter of fact, all you're doing is hurting us. And that's where a lot of our prides and our egos get into play, because our egos tell us that I'm going to just do me and I'm going to have my little tribe and we going to do what we going to do, but you're not going to do nothing. Not in a bigger context. And that's why, again, it's so important that when you have leadership talking about the collective, but they're really only out here to boost up their own ego. They want to feel good about what they're doing. And so that's what they're doing. They're not worried about the collective. They're not worried about leading people in a collective direction in order to make something happen, right? So let me tell you the last thing. The last thing is that leaders are responsible for results. They're responsible for results. And this is probably one of the most important pieces, because we as people have to hold our leadership accountable and responsible for results. You don't get to control resources, control networks. You don't get to set agendas. And then when it comes to having no results or lackluster results, be like, that's not my fault. Yes, it is. It is your fault. So again, being in a leadership position is a tall order. It's not, everybody is not cut out for it. It's not meant for everybody. It doesn't mean that you're not meant to be a leader individually. It doesn't mean that you're not meant to have leadership qualities and leadership traits and leadership values. It means that everybody is not cut out to be in a position and status of leadership, because if you're not willing to be responsible for the results or the lack of results, inside of what you're organizing, inside of what you're structuring, inside of the direction that you set, inside of the culture that you're creating, and inside of inside the example that you're setting, if you're not willing to do that or be that, then you don't get to be in a leadership position. So I think it's very important that we understand how, one, having leadership actually matters, and being okay with the fact that maybe leadership or a position of leadership is not for you. And then also recognizing that positions of leadership, the leadership team does not do it by themselves. First of all, it's rarely one leader, right? There is always a team. It's a team of folks that are on the same accord, that have different skill sets, that help lead things in one direction. And then they have to put out a call, and you as individuals inside of the community have to be leaders to step up and begin to make those changes and begin to answer the call. So it takes all of us, and this comes back again to this idea of unity. Now, when I say all of us, it don't take all 44 million of us. That's the good thing, because getting all 44 million of us ain't never happened in the 500 years we've been here. People have always been self-serving, worried about themselves, worried about their family, all of those things, right? And violent white racists have always been able to exploit the fact that people, your natural inclination as a person is to look out for your own best interest. So I'm not even here today to knock any of those people who are looking out for their own best interest. What I am going to say is that I'm glad we don't need all 44 million of us, right? We need enough of us. In my opinion, I would say we probably only need about 10 to 15% of us to make a shift, make a switch, and begin to move in the same direction, and we could really turn some tides, right? But in order for us to do that, we have to recognize that it is absolutely imperative that we have leadership. So we need to stop saying that. We need to stop saying everybody is a leader. That is true. Everybody's a leader, but that doesn't negate needing leadership inside of our communities. So I don't want to hear that dumb shit no more. And that's what I came on to talk about. Because I don't want to hear that no more. Because I think that's dumb. And I think that is a ploy. That is another mental conditioning and a ploy of Biden, is when we have our Black leadership that has set an agenda that was created by the people, that we hold them accountable, we remove them when they don't work, and if they are killed or they die, that we have other people who are being groomed and willing and ready to step up into those spaces. So if you are a person who has those leadership qualities and traits, and you have thought about what it would take to be in the forefront of a movement, or be in the forefront of the people, or even be in the forefront of your own community, but you haven't quite gotten there yet, don't worry, because as you're continuing to develop and grow yourself, there's going to be that time when you're ready to step up into one of those positions. So with that, y'all, I'm going to remind you to please like, subscribe, and share out this information. Let's just remember the difference between being a leader and being in a position of leadership. Let's start talking about how we hold our leaders accountable. Don't forget to join my Patreon community. You can go to Patreon at Grind with Jice. There are Patreon levels everywhere from $1 up to $20, so very affordable for you to get in there and work with us, work with me. I am also mentioning that right now my coaching is open, so I have a couple of slots left for one-on-one coaching. If you want to find out more about that, you can hit me up, and you can hit me up at info@bbiprofessional.com. You can go there. Don't forget to go to the Black Agenda on tour.com. Text Black Agenda to 484848 to stay in touch. We have some changes coming down the pipe. I think we've been getting a few phone calls. We've been getting some feedback, and we are beginning to put those things in motion. So I just want to thank you all for joining with me today. You will catch me again next Tuesday is when you will see me again. All right, y'all. So have a great Memorial Day weekend as well. All right. Peace.